Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about all things music. And today, not today, but a few days ago, I decided to create a new Rate Your Music account. Yeah, I decided to delete my old one, so feel free to follow me. Anyway, I've made it to 100 ratings on my new account. So, let's rank them, including some that I haven't ranked before. So let's get started with number 100.
My ex bitch, I'm shining on my ex bitch. I'm shining. My ex bitch, I'm shining on my ex bitch. I'm shining.
I've talked about this atrocity of an album twice already, at least. And honestly, I don't want to talk about it anymore, so I'll keep this brief. Basically, the beats on this album, for the most part, are way too creepy sounding to be any fun, which is not what I want on a party album. Both of our rappers sound like they're going through puberty, and the lyrics, while I don't expect them to be deep or thought-provoking, I mean, this is a party album, I do expect them to be competent, and here they are not. Seriously. When they're not blatantly contradicting themselves on songs like No Flex Zone and No Type, they're being really misogynistic towards their exes on songs like My Ex, or praising Donald Trump on songs like Up Like Trump. Look, I get that song came out before Trump ran for president. However, Trump was a slime ball even back then, so that doesn't make this excusable. There are a couple of decent songs on here, like the admittedly catchy Come Get Her, and the songs This Could Be Us and Safe Sex Paychecks, which have admittedly decent melodies. However, most of this album is a mess, and in a year like 2015, where we got Rodeo by Travis Scott, The Barter 6 by Young Thug, and Dirty Sprite 2 by Future, we didn't need this, and honestly, I'm glad that this record has not gotten the reappraisal that those albums have. 2 out of 10. Well, here's an infamous album I haven't talked about yet. Green Day is one of my favorite bands, and I'll defend their later work more than most critics. That said, I have no words to defend this abomination. Musically, this is basically Green Day's attempt at garage rock. And while I'm not against that idea in theory, in practice, this attempt at garage rock sounds less like a good garage rock band like the Strokes or the White Stripes, and more like Jet. You know, the band that did the soundtrack to those 2000s era iPod commercials. Yeah, this entire album sounds like an iPod commercial, which would be bad enough as is, but then you get Billy Joe Armstrong's horrible falsetto, which just makes this even more annoying than anything Jet ever did somehow. And while the closing track, Graffitia, is surprisingly solid, and I like the attitude on Stab You in the Heart, this album is still kind of a mess, and honestly, between this and Dose, I sincerely hope Green Day never touch garage rock ever again. 3 out of 10.
I love everything you do. When you call me fucking dumb for the stupid shit I do. Wanna run my back with you. Fully undressed, no training wheels left for you.
Oh god, I actually used to like this album. That is, until I realized how grossly exploitative the lyrics are. Let me explain. This album is a concept album about childhood trauma made by Melanie Martinez, who has never gone through any childhood trauma by her own admission. I wouldn't have a problem with this if she handled it well. I get it. Musicians play characters sometimes. But here's the thing. She didn't handle it well. Let me start from the beginning. This is a concept album about a girl named Crybaby, yes really, who goes through all sorts of childhood trauma, including but not limited to coming from a dysfunctional family, watching her mom murder her dad, and getting kidnapped. Now, eventually, all of this trauma causes Crybaby to go insane and murder her kidnapper. If this was handled well, she would have been checked into a mental institution or gotten some therapy at the very least. Instead, she becomes empowered by her insanity and uses her said empowerment to steal boyfriends from other girls and shame women for having plastic surgery. Before the final song, Mad Hatter, talks about how it's good that she's crazy. Yeah. This is right up there with 13 Reasons Why on the list of pieces of media that glorify mental illness. It's disgusting. So if I'm this disgusted by it, why isn't it lower? Well, because from a technical standpoint, it's not badly produced or incompetent, and it does have some catchy moments. Plus, there are a couple songs on here that, if you listen to them outside the context of the album, they're really not that bad. However, this album, I desperately wish I could hate this album more, I'll just say that. 4 out of 10, and it's a really light 4 out of 10 at that. Another album I hate by a good band. This album is a bit like the Melanie Martinez album we just talked about in that it deals with childhood trauma. However, unlike Melanie Martinez, Waterpark's frontman Austin Knight has actually dealt with the trauma he's talking about on this album. In this case, religious trauma. I respect what he's trying to do here, I just feel like he could have made it sound better. See, the sound this album is going for is a genre-bending electropop album with some pop rock elements. It's not quite hyperpop, but it's close. That sound works really well when the lyrics are trying to be goofy. Here, he's writing from like an angst-ridden pop-punk sort of style. And that does not work with this quirky instrumentation at all. It also doesn't help that Austin Knight's auto-tune sounds awful on here. It completely ruins his voice, and while normally he's a pretty good singer, I don't understand why he would mess his voice up this badly. So yeah, this album was a disappointment, and I sincerely hope Waterparks do not continue in this direction. 4 out of 10.
I'ma tell you one time. I'ma tell you one time. And
Yup, even with a new Rate Your Music account, we can't escape the onslaught of Justin Bieber. Spoiler alert, he's appearing on this list 9 times, 8 of which will be in this video. So, let's start with his first EP, My World. This EP has admittedly a couple decent moments. Down to Earth is a nice little emotional song about Justin's parents getting divorced, and the only track on this album that he actually has a writing credit on. And First Dance has some decent storytelling. That said, Love Me, the closing track, samples Love Fool by the Cardigans in the laziest way possible and is a disgrace to that song. And the lead single and Justin's first big hit, One Time, that song is just a disgrace in general. Yeah, 4 out of 10.
That yummy, yum, that yummy, yum, that yummy, yummy. Yeah, you got that yummy, yum, that yummy, yum.
Yep, more Justin Bieber. I warned you guys, didn't I? This one is just a slog to get through. Imagine 17 tracks that all sound roughly the same, and they're all boring. If you can imagine that, congratulations, you just imagine this album. The only songs on here that do stand out in a bad way, such as the lead single Yummy, which has one of the most disgusting choruses I've ever heard. The remix with Yummy featuring Summer Walker, which is even worse thanks to Summer Walker's annoying vocals. And the terrible attempt at a comedy song that is Running Over featuring Little Dicky. Yeah. Other than that, the only thing that stands out about this album is just how clingy Justin sounds on it. Like, I get that he's in love, but does he have to be this weirdly obsessive about it? Everything else about this album is a snooze fest. 4 out of 10. Let me make one thing unmistakably clear. I'm not against electronicore as a genre on principle. I think electronic music and metalcore can sound good together. I just don't like what Abandoned All Ships does with the genre. Basically, imagine the most generic metalcore band you've ever heard in your life, combined with the weakest electronic elements ever. If you can imagine that, congratulations, you just imagined Abandon All Ships. That said, Family Portrait is decent, if only because it has Rhodey Walker of Protest the Hero doing some guest vocals, and When Dreams Become Nightmares is also fairly catchy. Other than that, it's a generic metalcore album that has a couple low points that drag it down. Those low points being the songs Guardian Angel and Strange Love. These two songs are the most electronic oriented, and they're both filled to the brim with off-key auto-tune singing, and Guardian Angel has some really creepy, borderline stalkerish lyrics. And then there's Strange Love, which ends with, dance like you fuck, dance like you fuck. Like, that lyric raises so many questions that I do not want answered. Anyway, 4 out of 10.
What a good things come to all those terrible people, and would God be the next big thing?
I mentioned in my Water Parks vs. Neck Deep video that this album is a disappointment, and I stand by it. The concept isn't that bad until you notice all the anti-political nihilism that just reeks of privilege sprinkled throughout. And also, there's a couple of terrible songs on here, namely Quarry and Low Life, which Yeah, whoever thought putting those on here, let alone releasing Low Life as a single, should have been fired. And also, the final third of this album all feels like filler. Like, the last 4 songs on here are incredibly boring. 4 out of 10.
I wish we had another time. I wish we had another place. But everything we have is stuck in the moment.
And we're back to Justin Bieber. This is a lot better than the original My World, if only because Justin's voice sounds a bit less shaky, and also because he sounds less like he's trying to be a sex god and more just desperate, which actually fits his prepubescent voice pretty well. That said, while the tone of the music matches Justin's voice pretty well, how big and grand the songwriters are trying to make these puppy love songs sound does not. For example, Stuck in the Moment, Never Let You Go, those songs in particular are way melodramatic. And also, Eeny Meeny is on here, and yeah, that's never a good sign. I will say Overboard is a decent ballad, though. 5 out of 10. This album is an overproduced mess. The vocals are too loud, the synths are too loud, the bass is barely audible, and I don't even know what Joe Troman or Andy Hurley even did on here. That said, Wilson Expensive Mistakes has a great chorus, and I'll even say the last of the real ones is fairly catchy. Church and Champion are both decent as well. However, songs like Heaven's Gate, Sunshine Riptide, Young and Menace especially, and Stay Frosty Royal Milk Tea make me irrationally angry. So yeah, this is a mixed bag. 5 out of 10.
I could just die in your arms. I wouldn't mind.
This is the album where Justin Bieber tried to mature and didn't do a very good job. Sure, his voice is deeper, but this album also has the song Boyfriend, where he tries to rap and thinks he can say swag, and also As Long As You Love Me, which has a really corny guest verse from Big Sean, and also has some instrumentation that sounds like something a dubstep fan would get mad at you for calling dubstep. That's just the singles, though. The deep cuts aren't much better, with lyrics like, I'm in love with the thought of you, and also songs like Die in Your Arms, which are just, again, so melodramatic. That said, Take You is reasonably catchy. Beauty and a Beat would have been a good song if not for that terrible Nicki Minaj verse. And Fall and Believe are both decent enough ballads. So yeah, mixed bag. 5 out of 10.
Oh baby, baby, it's full time. You know I really wanna make you mine.
Green Day's second worst album. This isn't as bad as Father of All, if only because there's less annoying falsetto on it. But this album still isn't good. Songs like Make Out Party, Fuck Time, Lady Cobra, and especially Nightlife are all terrible, and they all sound like they were written by the world's horniest virgin. And then you get songs like See You Tonight, Amy, and Wild One, which are just boring. Like, they just sound dead. The rest of the album ranges from decent to actually pretty good. But, man, that still means over half of the track list on this thing sucks. 5 out of 10.
A newborn king to see.
Here's Justin Bieber's attempt at a Christmas album. It's really boring. The only songs on here that aren't boring are Mistletoe, which is okay, I guess. All I Want for Christmas Is You, featuring Mariah Carey, which sounds exactly like the original. Like, seriously, this is the laziest cover ever. Santa Claus Is Coming to Town, which is surprisingly pretty good. And Drummer Boy, which is one of the worst Christmas songs I've ever heard. Like, seriously, imagine adding rap verses to Little Drummer Boy. Like, that song wasn't that great to begin with, but Justin Bieber and Busta Rhymes managed to desecrate it somehow. Yeah, again, mostly it's just boring, though. 5 out of 10.
Yes. This is what it feels like when you become one of the drums.
Yep, I've decided that I like this a little bit better than Mania. Mainly because, as much as I don't like this album, it, at the very least, doesn't have anything as bad as Young and Menace on it. It does have a few atrocities, like One of the Drunks, Dancing's Not a Crime, and Fuck a Silver Lining. But, other than that, yeah, even those songs are too generic to be offensive in the way that Young and Menace was, even though they are overproduced and annoying. Yeah, that's kind of my problem with this album. It's overproduced and annoying, yet it's also really generic, and it feels soulless. Like, yeah, it sounds like a robot trying to sound like Brendan Urie. Yeah. It's not bad enough for me to get too mad at it, but it's still not good. 5 out of 10.
Stories already written. Children, you are forgiven. Yeah.
This is Justin Bieber's attempt at a contemporary Christian album. Boy, does it sound like it. It's boring, preachy, and while I admire the fact that Justin opens up about some of his mistakes on this album, all of that gets counteracted by the terrible anti-cancel culture song, Afraid to Say, which... Look, Justin, saying that we shouldn't cancel people because God doesn't? Get out of my face with that. Yeah, 5 out of 10. It's boring. A lot of people seem to like this one, and I have to ask, why? On this album, Justin Bieber makes the least sincere apology album ever. Basically, here's what happens. He laughs in his audience's face, pretends to apologize, all the while hiding behind sarcasm, and yeah. If you want a good Justin Bieber apology album, check the next part in this series. Now, you could say that the instrumentation on this album is good, and I can kinda see that. Songs like Company and No Sense are actually pretty good. And even some of the songs I don't care for are decent musically. That said, I do think this album is a tad overrated in this department. Mainly because songs like Purpose, Life's Worth Living, Love Yourself, and Yes, Sorry are actually extremely generic. Yeah, I don't see what's so great about the beat to Sorry at all. 5 out of 10, overrated. This feels like a weaker version of what Fall Out Boy were doing on Save Rock and Roll the same year. It has some good songs like Vegas Lights, Nicotine, and Far Too Young to Die, but it also has some seriously questionable moments like Casual Affair and Girls, Girls, Boys. Seriously. Girls, Girls, Boys is a song about a guy trying to get a bisexual woman and her girlfriend to have a threesome with him. How was this ever viewed as a pride anthem again? Anyway, other than that, it's mostly okay. 6 out of 10.
I remember every night that we spent on the edge, cold warmth and the bitter taste that it left. Just so carefree and reckless.
Look, I like Neck Deep, but even I'll admit they didn't start out on the best note. Like, yes, Zoltar Speaks is a great song, and I'll even admit that Candor and Crushing Grief No Remedy are not bad. That being said, most of this album is pretty generic. All the songs have a similar feel. The production isn't that good, and Ben Barlow's voice wasn't 100% there yet. So yeah, it's okay, but they do a lot better. 6 out of 10.
Try to find your space. They might be out there waiting. Stay in my backpack forever.
We're at Justin Bieber appearance number 8 now, and this is his second best album. This one has a few really good songs, like Roller Coaster, which has a nice carnival-inspired feel. PYD, which is pretty sexy and would be even better if R. Kelly wasn't such a creep. And also, Confident, which is legit excellent. Probably my either first or second favorite Justin Bieber song. And also Backpack, which is the biggest head-scratching moment of Justin Bieber's career. Like, seriously, this is a song about Justin Bieber meeting an alien, carrying it around in his backpack, and the alien is played by Lil Wayne. What? Also, this song has a guitar solo, so props to Justin Bieber for thinking outside the box with this one. Anyway, yeah, there's also a lot of really boring songs on here, but there's not a lot of outright atrocious stuff either. So, 6 out of 10, and if I was more of an R&B fan, I might even give this a higher score.
Are you searching for purpose? Then write something, yeah, it might be worthless. Then paint something, then it might be wordless. Pointless curses, nonsense verses.
21 Pilots may be my favorite band, but man, are their early albums flawed. Like, especially regional at best. Like, a good chunk of this album is just songs that were re-recorded for their next album, Vessel, and those versions sound way better than the ones on here. Even the songs that weren't re-recorded have some flaws, like, there's some rough vocal moments, there's some not very good production. In fact, Tyler Joseph himself has called this a glorified demo, and yeah, he's not wrong. Yeah. It has some great songs, though, such as Ruby, Kitchen Sink, Forest. But yeah, this is not my favorite 21 Pilots album. And I give it a 6 out of 10. And with that, we have reached the 1/5 of the way through this list, which means we have to stop here. Don't worry, though. Part 2 is coming soon, hopefully. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.